What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome back to the Rise of a Nation, here with FC Edmonton. Today it is episode number 16, it is the start of Season 3. And, well, if you missed the end of season live com last time out, do go check it out before we get into today's episode, of course. But the great news is, we're still in a job. Yes, rejoice everyone, we've not been fired. That was a concern, genuinely. As you know, a board takeover was in process, and there were a few inbox items that did leave me panicking. I'll put on screen just so you can see kind of what I was seeing in front of me during the, I think it was December, I think it was just after Christmas that the takeover actually happened, and I was freaking out thinking, oh my god, what do we do if I get sacked? If I get sacked and the board just decide to bring in a new manager, what happens? The good news is, we survived, and well, we are ready and raring to go. We've got a bit of a bee in our bonnet, of course. Last season, missing out and losing to Halifax as we did has kind of ignited a fire in my stomach. And I've not held back any punches in the transfer window. We've gone pretty hard with transfers. I wanted to add in quality. I've been a bit ruthless in some of the players I've let go. I feel like, I mean, we can have a look at them, can't we? Let's look at the transfers to start things off. But yeah, a lot of players getting loaned out, a lot of younger players, but I feel like the most notable thing is just some of the players we've moved on. Lincourt Joseph, fantastic player for us, always been a pretty good performer, but was always going to struggle to fit into the team. We've got £90,000 for him, which is pretty good, really. David Edgar, one of a few of the older players who I let go. To be honest, a player who I didn't really have any intention of letting go until he got that injury towards the end of last year. It was a minor one with the double hernia. I say minor, he was out for 4 weeks. But it just kind of made me think, maybe we move him on before he gets, too frail, I guess. He still had a couple of years left on his contract as well. Similar story with Marcel as well. Turned 34, had a few injuries last year, was out with a calf strain for 4 weeks. It did really negatively impact him, and I just decided, you know what, I could have this guy on my books for another year. Yes, it's nice, that sentimental value of having players here at the club who were here when I came, but ultimately, we're in the business of getting results, and last season we didn't get results. So he was, another player who we ended up just moving on. You can see to Penn FC. Mortozzi left us for Forge for a very small amount of money. He's just a player who's just not of the quality that we need right now, which is harsh to say, but he was one of the players in our first team who made the fewest appearances last year. I also elected to move on Powley, our kind of backup goalkeeper, with the new young goalkeeper, I want to say Williams. Is that right? It is, Kevin Williams. With Kevin Williams coming in, Powley isn't going to get a shout. Williams, we don't need to register him for the next 2 seasons, so obviously that's really useful for the squad registration a bit. And we had a bid from a team in Sweden. They gave us £700. I went and bought a laptop with that immediately. But yeah, bit of money in the coffers. And various loanings out as well here. Diallo went out on loan. Atado's gone out on loan to York 9. Wasn't young enough to be exempt from registration this year. Was always going to struggle to fit him in my 23-man squad. So a loan spell to a team in our own division is good. Similar situation with Prince Amanda, just turned 19. Bruno Zebi, we'll talk about why we've loaned him out in a second, but ultimately couldn't quite fit him in my squad registration, but a player who we might need next year still. You'll notice that a lot of these players have gone on loan to teams in the USL Championship and also the USL League One. The reason for doing this is the fact that these teams are all paying these players' wages in full, which is obviously fantastic for us. Now, I don't have the USL Championship loaded, so we will monitor how players' development gets on with them being on loan in the USA, but yeah, it kind of made a lot of sense. I guess the most notable of the loanings out was Koji Oyamada, and the reason for loaning him out is he was probably going to be 5th or 6th choice centre-back this year. On £1,000 a week, I couldn't really justify that. We did give him a new contract, which removed his release clause, which was good news. You can see he has got some pretty large wage kind of rises after reaching a certain number of games, but I don't know, I want to see how he develops this year before I do anything. I'm a little bit off-put by his lack of ability in the air. Like, I really, really value that in a centre-back, and he's just missing it. But an opportunity for him to shine, and the fact we don't have to worry about his wages is, of course, just a massive, massive bonus. But anyway, they're the outs. Not too many crazy ones, really, but as I said, a bit of a passing of the guard. let's talk about the new additions, and let's talk with a club record transfer. When the board took over, they were like, you can have £700,000 to spend extra. And I was like, you know what? We'll spend it all on one player. Marcel Ruiz is the man we've got. This is the best signing I've made so far here at FC Edmonton. He's not even played a game yet. 20 years old, Mexican international. I believe last year in Liga MX he was the youngest player to score a goal in the competition, aged 17. We've got him for £650,000. We've signed him, not the craziest of wages either. He does have a release clause of £1 million, and I'm like wiggling around it because I hate that it's there because I feel like a team will bid that. We are hopefully, however, going to be able to offer him a new contract where we can remove that. That's the dream. It's happened with a few other players, like Oyamada is a good example. Hopefully Marcel Ruiz will be the same. The other additions we made, Carlos Mora has joined us, the young Paraguayan player who was on our radar from last season. Good to finally have him at the club. And a similar story, I guess, with Solomon as another player who we agreed to sign a little while ago. Jamaican international, very good, solid little centre-half. Only 26 as well, which is nice. Anyway, another player for this first team we've signed is Daniel Lovitz here. He is 29 years old. A bit of an issue with this guy is the fact that he's not Canadian, but we're waiting for paperwork. You might be wondering, well, why is that an issue? He joined us at the end of last month, and we already have 7 foreign players in the team because of some of the signings we've made above, Ruiz, Mora and Solomon, all adding on to our foreign player limit. So Lovitz was going to take us over the foreign player limit, but I was like, well, that's not going to be a problem. He's going to get Canadian nationality in the month before the season starts. He hasn't got it yet. The paperwork's still going on, and the registration window closes in 3 days' time. Someone needs to fix their fax machine. He thinks that if he's omitted from the squad, he's going to want to leave. So we might have a situation where we have to, remove one of our kind of foreign players in order to make sure we stay within the limit of 7. But we'll have a look at that in a second with the squad. A few younger players joined us. Player here, Pavel, from our academy team. Esteban joined us from Sigma, our affiliate. He looks like a pretty good striker, the young Spaniard. He's also obviously part Canadian. Another young Canadian joined us here, Pekka Perovuo. That looks Finnish to me, that name. It is Finnish. I'm a genius, right? We'll finish the episode there. No, we won't. But no, he looks like a very good centre-back, actually. Good in the air. Almost prefer him over Oyayama just because of how good he is in the air. Is it Oyayama? Mada, Jack. That's bad. I will get there in the end with the names. There's a lot of new faces. You'll have to bear with me. It's like I'm a teacher in a classroom full of new kids. Anyway, we also brought in, of course, David Norman. That was a deal that was already agreed to come in, but a good signing nevertheless. We've also loaned Liam Fraser from Toronto FC. He's a good player. I'm a little bit torn because his wages that we're contributing towards are a little more than I'd like. His contract actually expires at the end of the season, and I'm hoping that if we can have him here on loan, sweeten him up, maybe he will want to join us. And as a centre-back option, he would be a very, very good option, I think, in that position. And obviously, he can also play defensive mid and centre mid. So yeah, if we could get him in at the end of the year on a free, fantastic. If that opportunity doesn't present itself, I might be tempted to terminate his loan. I think part of this loan deal in my head, I was thinking, well, it's a chance for us to, I guess, bed him in and see how he gets on. Off the pitch, though, not a great deal happening. I don't think I've seen any updates to do with our stadium. I think we're still looking for, if we go to facilities here, we're still looking for a site to actually build the stadium on. We did upgrade our youth junior coaching budget and our youth recruitment in the off-season again. These are two elements that obviously we can upgrade, and they're a lot cheaper than doing your training facilities and youth facilities. I still want to improve these over time, but with a stadium on the horizon, it's kind of something I've had to put on the back burner. The new ownerships come in. Obviously, they backed us a bit in the transfer market with the players that we brought in, like Ruiz. We have a still largely healthy bank balance. To be honest, the wages didn't really go up or down kind of between this year and last year. If anything, I think our total spend might have gone down. As I mentioned, we've loaned out a lot of players. And actually, when you look at the players' wages that we've loaned out, all of these wages pretty much covered in full. We're actually saving ourselves quite a lot of money. So, in terms of first team news for the first game of the season against Pacific FC, Steve is out. St. Duck, he's waiting in the wings. He's in the hospital. Sprained ankle ligaments, out for between 12 days and 4 weeks. You might remember he missed the start of last season, which was a massive shame. We're going to have to try and deal our best with him. Obviously, this is the first year where the foreign player limit is actually going to be a factor for us. We currently have 8 players, with Lovitz yet to get his Canadian nationality approved. With the rules, just as a reminder, you're allowed 5 foreign players on the pitch at any one time. So if we want to bring in these guys, it's got to be a straight swap, which does cause a few headaches. You know, sometimes we're going to have to do double subs to come within the foreign player limits. With us not being in continental competition this year, there is going to be plenty of room for rotation, and obviously our campaign as a whole is going to be a lot more focused on the league and hopefully doing well in the Canadian Championship. Having gone unbeaten last year in the full season, it feels like such a massive kick in the gonads that we didn't win the whole thing. Obviously, that's the nature of a playoffs. We knew what we were getting into. But yeah, it's something worth being aware of. I already talked about the fact, we moved on Edgar, we moved on Marcelin. 2 other players who got long-term injuries, you might remember last year, were Edwini Bonsu, who was out for a long time. If I'm not mistaken, it was a long time, wasn't it? Was it a hip injury? It was a hip injury. You can see since then he's had a load more little kind of tiny injuries as well, which is a bit annoying. And equally, Amiobi also had that injury to end the season and was out for 5 weeks. Again, 2 players in their 30s, long-term injuries longer than a month, always kind of set off alarms kind of ringing in my ears. I'm starting to panic. The good news is with these guys, they've actually signed year-long extensions, so they're going to be here to the end of next year, but they have also taken wage cuts. Edwini Bonsu's actually, slashed his wages by about 50%. And you can see here, Amiobi's gone down from £1,000 per week to £650. So they've done us a bit of a favour. Obviously, they kind of recognise the fact they are in the tail end of their career. With us now being at the foreign player limit, we probably won't be making that many more big signings in the next couple of years. This is a squad that I think should see us through to the end of next year, kind of next season, pretty comfortably, I'd like to envisage. And it might be at that point then with Edwini, Bonsu and Amiobi's contracts running out at the end of that season after the season after this year, that, then we can reevaluate things, because some of these foreign players will at that point be getting a Canadian citizenship, which means they won't be foreign players. In order to get Canadian citizenship, you've got to basically accumulate 3 years worth of days in the country. Shandell Senior is our closest player. He's still over a year off. He of course joined us in the summer of our first season, so he's already beyond the halfway point towards getting Canadian citizenship, which is pretty good news if you ask me. So you might be wondering, how are we going to play? And the truth is, I want to stick with the same system. It might be slightly naive. This is the team we're going to go with to start today's game. The only real kind of change that I would like to make, really, is I would obviously like to have Duck up top instead of Sarkaria, and Lovitz would probably come in ahead of Telfer out on the left. The reason for bringing in Lovitz is that he is a massive upgrade on Osorio, who is our kind of current backup left winger. I mean, you can see the difference between them here. But actually, I didn't really realise until after I'd signed Lovitz, he's probably an upgrade on Telfer as well. Definitely better defensively, perhaps not quite so good going forward. But I feel like these 2 players could be quite complementary to one another on the left wing. It really gives us a good bit of strength in depth. Of course, with Ruiz joining us and me seeing him as a big right winger for us, it doesn't mean Edwini Bonsu is another player who's going to be relegated down. But make no mistake, there'll be plenty of rotation during this season. And I feel like we have a very, very strong team at our disposal. To start the year, we are going to go with Connor James ahead of Williams, but I have no doubt that we're going to probably be swapping back and forth between these 2 guys. Williams at 17 looks very, very good. As I already touched upon with the Pauli sale, Williams doesn't need to be registered for the next 2 years, which is a huge bonus for us in the goalkeeping department. At the back for today's game, we're going to go with Apare, Soria and Temguia. We are at 4 foreign players in the starting 11. Solomon joined us just a month ago, so he's still not 100% familiar with this system, but he's a player who definitely will feature fairly prominently in the first team. If we just quickly compare him, I'm trying to think of the best person to compare him to it's probably Temguia. If we just compare the 2, you can see here Temguia slightly better in the air, slightly better going forward perhaps, but better defensively, better mentally, more experience as well on Solomon. I feel like he's a very good player, Solomon. He'll play this year. I kind of have a rough idea of our starting 11 in my head, but I have no doubt there's going to be juggling required to keep everyone happy. So I feel like players will kind of step up to the plate and stand out. Two players I do worry for this year are Osorio and Chung at left and kind of right back backups, because these guys are now pretty much third choice in their respective positions. Hopefully they're okay with that being their squad status going forward, but there could be a little bit of a, I guess, a kick-off there. In the centre-mid department as well, we're in a pretty good position. Deshays, I want to get into the first team this year. He is a player who improved a lot last year, probably deserved more opportunities, the 18-year-old. He's on the bench for us. And of course, Mossavat, who genned at the club last year, similar to Williams, already playing for the Canadian under-20 side, a player who I'm very keen to see play for us this year and get some regular football in that position. But anyway, let's get into today's game and see how we get on. Of all the positions, we're maybe lacking strength and depth, and it's probably the striking department that you would look at. Obviously, we have Sarkaria, Amiobi, Daly, and Duck. Behind them, Atado's gone out on loan this year because he wasn't a freebie to register. Edwini Bonsu, to be honest, is probably classified as fifth choice striker. I'm hoping it won't come to that. You know, if one player gets injured, I would probably just rotate the three of them and take it from there. But, well, we'll have to, see how this season goes. I'm hoping that we won't have the longer-term injuries that we had last year. It did feel very unfortunate, the fact they kept falling on older players. The one player who I really hope we don't have any injuries to is Soria as centre-back. He's been just a rock of our team year on year. A bit of an unsung hero, and, well, that's a good start, isn't it? If I was about to say, if Soria is an unsung hero, Daly here is the sung hero. Marcel Ruiz, though, with the assist on his debut, that's great news for the Mexican international. Really just a massive signing, Ruiz is. I can't believe we managed to get him. He was transfer listed. Apparently no other Mexico teams were interested in him. He wasn't on a lot of money. He's obviously incredibly young still. Really excited to see him hopefully tear it up down the right wing. That's kind of where I see him being for us. But anyway, we take on Pacific in this first game of the year. They finished rock bottom last year. They've been going through a bit of a revolution of their own. I think they've swapped their manager. They've brought in some new players and moved on some other ones. Of course, we've got to keep an eye out for Prince, who's on loan at them. Maybe he'll be making some appearances. And, well, Telfer on this left-hand side crosses it in. Daly's there. I mean, he's on for a hat-trick. He's got 75 minutes to try and do it. I feel like Nick Daly is quickly becoming a hero for us. Interesting bit of news. Temguia has become captain at the club this year. I've decided to drop Amiobi down the pecking order. Vice-captain, Nick Daly. He's got, I think 13 leadership. I see him as a real rock of our team going forward. He might be young, but he's a player who I hope we will have for many years to come. I think his current contract runs out in 2023. But has an optional 3-year extension. So, yeah, a long-term player for us. As a great save by Connor James there. Keeps the deficit to 2. I thought for a second that Pacific were going to try and break back against us there and get a goal back to make things a little interesting. I would be interested to know what you guys think of the transfer business that we've done. I will try and remember. Future Jack, please remember, to show you guys the transfer business that's been going on in the league. We'll have a look at the season preview, I think, just because you might think that £650,000 is mad. Forge have spent over £1 million on a player who I'm not sure they should have spent that money on. It's a player who they signed from, I want to say the Dutch leagues. I can't remember which team they got him from. I think he's a winger, if I remember correctly. He's a regen. He's 17. They've paid, I guess, the compensation for him. But yeah, over £1 million paid by Forge, and actually their net spend was massive. You might look at ours and go, wow, you've spent a lot of money. By comparison, we are not spending a lot of money at all. Also, after this game, we should be able to check the yearly salaries, which will be interesting to look at, so you can see a bit of a comparison. Because I think with all the players that we've loaned out, despite obviously a few new additions like Ruiz coming in on fairly big money and Solomon, we actually have, comparatively to Forge at least, a lot smaller or a wage total. Forge are lucky. They have a massive stadium that seats like over 20,000. They never sell it out, but it's obviously a massive revenue stream for them. And they're already starting to flex their kind of revenue muscles, if there was such a thing. Ruiz, what a run this is. Can he score at the end of it? He's hit the woodwork. I mean, more like that, please. More runs from deep. I'm all about that. Ruiz doesn't look too scared, does he, on his debut? He doesn't look daunted by the big occasion. One assist to his name already, looking for that goal on his debut as well. Where is he? You can see him over there. Can we get the ball over to him? Marshall to Zakaria. Senior hits it. I mean, Shandell Senior shouldn't get as many goals as he gets for us. He got 8 last season, I think in 24 league games, which for a defensive midfielder is nuts. Of course, we do play this positive controlling style of play where we hold onto the ball for a while. On the support duty, he is keen, to make these runs forward. And, well, as exhibited there, when he goes forward with them, he tends to do pretty good things for us. We go 3 goals to the good. And after last season, and the way that last season finished, this is a lot more pleasing way to start this year. I'll be honest with you, behind the curtains here, I played the last game of last season earlier today. I have sat for pretty much 8 hours, played through the last 6 months, just kind of full-on Terminator, like 1,000-yard stare. Like, I want revenge on Halifax for last year. Like, it legitimately annoyed me, the fact that they won the playoffs like they did. And, well, Nick Daly gets his hat-trick that he's been waiting for. But yeah, it made me annoyed. More annoyed than I'd like to admit. And it's one of the reasons why I've gone, kind of, I guess, actioned some of the signings we've made. Players like Ruiz, I might have second-guessed myself at £650,000. But obviously, with the new board coming in, with them backing me with the money, I was like, right, I think he's a difference maker for us. I want him on the right wing for us. And to be honest, looking at this game, he looks pretty blooming good out there, doesn't he? Anyway, let's make a change. I'm going to bring in Mora. I don't need to worry about the foreign player limit today because of Duck's injury, but we can bring in Mora there. Do I want to bring in Deshays as well? I think I do for Marshall, just to get some fresh legs in the midfield. It's going to be a debut for Carlos Mora, the Paraguayan under-21 international. Let's see what he can do. What's he made of? He's number 14. Shandell Senior has been found. That's going to be a red card for Osorio. Indeed it is. I mean, that's good news for us. Now can we score from the set piece? Rub salt in the wound. Not the best bit of play by Deshays will ever see that free kick. I'll pretend it didn't happen. Pacific last year did finish rock bottom of the league. They had Gaffer and Watson. You might remember our 2 young centre-backs on loan at them. In truth, they were both pretty bad for them. Watson has 1 year left on his contract. I'm not even sure if I'm going to renew it. As for Gaffer, he's actually gone out on loan again this year to another Canadian Premier League team where he should get football. Ruiz, what a run. Blaze it off to Daly. I mean, that is just hard battling by the right midfielder there. Nick Daly, 4 goals on the first game of the season. More of this, please, Nick. Ruiz picks it up. The number 6. He tries to get in the first ball. It bounces around. He puts in a crunching tackle. 3 of them go to him. He creates some space and an opening for Nick Daly. And from an impossible angle, he managed to get the pass away. We're laughing. This is how I wanted to start this season. After last year, genuine annoyance. We've bounced back well here. I'm going to go on attacking. They've only got 1 player up top on his own. I want Ruiz to get the hat-trick of assists out on the right-hand side. Shandell Senior now with it. Is he going to spread the play? He goes to Deshays, who tries to put it wide. They intercept. I mean, we are attacking now. We've got to be wary. Hernandez, he's going to try and be a party pooper. He's clean through. Connor James has had a mare there. He should have done better. The good news is it's not going to matter too much in the grand scheme of things because we're so far ahead. I'm going to take off Shandell Senior and we're going to give Solomon a game here, but we're going to play him at defensive midfielder, which might seem a little bit odd because he is more naturally a centre-back, but because of the foreign player limit and the fact we don't have any foreign players at centre-back, I think a common sub that we may end up doing this year will be bringing Solomon on to play the ball-winning midfielder role in a straight swap with Senior. Obviously, with them both being considered international players, that swap leaves us in a situation where the net gain is, well, 0. They've gone with 2 strikers. They've identified the fact we're not really showing them any respect. Village here, if he was to get the ball up quickly, they could really catch us out. I mean, he's completely gone the wrong way here. Ruiz to pick it up. Go on, my friend. He gives it to Tenguia. Continues his run down the wing. Look at Tenguia with the captain's armband. It makes me feel happy. Just wait until we see Daly with the armband. That's when we're going to get really carried away. And that will happen this year on a fair few occasions, I imagine, with Tenguia, being rotated in and out. Anyway, Tenguia getting the ball away. The captain with not the best bit of defending, but he has a second chance to get it here to Mora. What can you do, Mora? You're an athlete. You can run with the ball. Sarkaria to Telfer. Ruiz's back post. Can he score? Tight angle. Lays it across to Mora. I mean, that's what I want to see. Mora scores on his debut. Ruiz gets his 3rd assist of the game. This makes me happy. This makes me very, very happy. Suddenly, £650,000 seems like absolute peanuts for Ruiz. The sooner we can get rid of his release clause, the better. Obviously, the fact Mora scored as well is great because he's not a centre mid who's particularly attacking. He's quite an athletic player, a player who I think may even end up playing as another option in the ball-in midfielder role as well as a centre mid on support. But well, it's going to be game over here for Pacific FC, 6-1. If they were hoping for a better start to this season than last, well, we've not set them out on a particularly good path, have we? What a performance that is. From the moment they went down a man, the game was dead. But Nick Daly, 4 goals for him, 3 assists for Ruiz as well. I felt like on any other game, 3 assists would get you player of the match, but not today. Still though, good debut. Still got to worry about the paperwork coming through. You can see here Attardo played 63 minutes for York, which is good news. Diallo as well has gone on loan to Valor, so that's another interesting one. He has a few years left on his contract. It's a chance for Diallo to prove himself worthy of maybe being worth a spot in our team. But, well, with Nick Daly in his current form, it might be a challenge for either of those 2 players to anticipate breaking back into the team and being recalled from their loans. Anyway, as I said, I do want to look at the season preview, which if we just look at here, you can see we are the favourites. Not entirely surprising. Ruiz is listed now as the best player in the league in terms of kind of key players, and you can see he is out on the right-hand side. By comparison, probably the second best winger in the league is Gutierrez. Here is a direct comparison of the 2 players. You might argue there's not worlds apart between the 2, but I think when you look at the age especially of Ruiz and the fact he has got some potential, there's still a pretty significant gap. And of course, Duck here is now considered the best striker in the league, currently out injured. Mora, Mossavat and Deshays, 3 regens in the centre of the midfield, all of our own. Unfortunately, we don't have any of the back 4 right now, which is a bit unusual because Sori has been there since the beginning of time. If we just look here at transfers and some of the big ones, obviously I talked about Ruiz being the big deal for us, but there's been other big deals. You can see Lego, I think that's how you say this guy's name. Please correct me if I'm wrong. It's a French name, so I'm definitely saying it incorrectly. But he's moved to Forge FC for £275,000, which could rise as high as $350,000. I mentioned the Dutch player that they've signed. They've signed this guy, Henson. Now, to be fair, he looks pretty good aged 18. Would I pay £1 million for him? Probably not. But they've gone for it. I mean, I can't really knock them for it. The one thing I am thinking is he's probably not going to get into the Dutch national team, so maybe he'll become a Canadian citizen. A few other big deals. You can see here Cox left York 9 to go to Halifax for a pretty large sum of money, £175,000. And Marco Dominguez signed for Antigua, a 25-year-old centre mid. I think this guy is part Canadian. In fact, I'm certain he is because you can see here he's playing for Impact before. They bought him for £135,000. So, yeah, there has been money thrown around this year. If we just look at the transfer window on the whole, you can see here, in terms of net spend, we are up there, obviously, because of the Ruiz deal. But by comparison to Forges, and considering the profit that we made last year, I'm kind of okay with us spending as much money as we have done this year. Particularly with me now thinking, right, we need to win the league this year. You can see we made over £400,000 in deals. One player that I didn't mention actually is the fact that Son has gone to Valor. It does upset me. He is now already transfer listed, so maybe we made the right decision in letting him go. But yeah, just another one of the players that we've had that's gone to Valor. I do worry for Pacific because apparently Prince Amanda is their best signing of the window, and of course he's our 19-year-old who's out on loan at them. Still though, a fantastic opportunity for him to get regular first-team football in the Canadian Premier League, which we will monitor very, very closely. But no, all in all, it's interesting. Obviously, Forge is spending a lot of money, but other teams getting involved as well. If we just look at the Canadian Premier League and then team detailed here, And then finance, can we look at finances? We can. So salary per year, we are the third highest spenders. We're not actually that far ahead of either Valor or York either. By comparison, Forge spending significantly more money, and Halifax now spending more money than us. Obviously, transfer spend, a slightly different story. But yeah, just a story worth noting. Which, may change throughout the year, but we have cut our wages quite significantly. You can see Duck and Ruiz, our big earners, on £2,000 and £2,300 respectively. Forge, similar values to the kind of wages that they're offering their players. You can see here, Halifax have got Jakovic here and Danto on very large sums of money, £2,500 and £2,800 for two Canadian players. Gutierrez himself is on £2,000. So it's interesting. The other thing worth noting is our wages are high, but we have got, quite a large under-21 setup made up of a lot of junior players with lots of potential, which is probably also, even when you discount the players out on loan, probably is also contributing to our wage total. If you see here, if we just untick not at club, this is our under-21s team as you'd look at it without loanees. Without the loanees in terms of players who have gone out on loan. So there's loads of potential here, particularly in the striking department. No idea how these guys are all going to get a fair kind of chance, I guess, in front of goal. But that is for our under-21s manager to try and solve. And for me to perhaps not worry about quite so much. If we look at the Canadian Premier League here, I don't know if we can look at manager movements, but at the end of last year... it doesn't even show the movements actually at the end of last year. At the end of last year, 3 clubs changed their manager, which was quite a shock. I think Cavalry changed their manager, York 9 changed their manager, and I think Forge changed their manager as well. You can see they've got this guy, Forarinson. Never heard of him. He is a Icelandic manager. He looks okay, to be fair. He doesn't have a face, which is obviously the benchmark for how good a manager is. Cavalry, who was your new coach? You've brought in Mark Watson, who I think is former Forge manager. So a little bit of a merry-go-round going on here. Who did York 9 bring in? They brought in Hernan Elizondo. Now, you might remember York 9. They took out under-21 manager last year. They just didn't renew his contract. I don't think he wanted to sign a new deal with them. But yeah, an interesting bit of manager movement there, I guess. And, what a start to the season that is through Nick Daly and Ruiz. I feel like these two guys, we might be seeing a fair bit of them this year, particularly Ruiz. I know he's not great defensively, but I can look past that. And if you can assist 3 goals every game, I feel like it's not going to be too much of a concern. Anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up everything from me today. Let me know what you made of our pre-season signings. I think Ruiz is a big one. This year, obviously, the dynamic that we have with foreign players is going to be an interesting one that we are going to have to kind of juggle around. I would like to obviously continue to focus on having a Canadian-centric side, and we will be forced into that due to the registration rules, but a bit of uncharted territory for us to wade through, I guess, when it comes to managing squad time and playing time. But I'm relishing the challenge. And without us being in continental football, it might even be a bit more challenging than it otherwise would have been. But anyway, I've rambled for long enough today. This has been a long episode for the start of season. If you are enjoying the series, as always, do drop a like on it. I'll see you on the next one. It is me, Jack, and I'll talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.